You're listening to the Morphology Podcast. Thanks for tuning into the Morphology Podcast, aka Murph here to share interviews about biking experiences from cyclists who have pedaled to places all over. Each episode, we will get to know new people and explore new destinations to ride your bike. As you listen to these adventures, you may wonder, why haven't I done that yet? Well, today meet Chip Hofler from North Carolina Amateur Sports and Cycle North Carolina. Cycle North Carolina is an organization that hosts some pretty cool rides, including a mountain ride and a coastal ride. I'm planning to do an epic tour with them in October that combines both. It's called Cycle North Carolina Mountains to Coast. It's a 7-day fully supported ride, and Chip is going to tell us all about it. Before we get to the interview, if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to this podcast so you'll know when new episodes drop. Here's Chip. All right, well, a very warm welcome to Chip Hofler from Cycle North Carolina. Hey, Chip.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It's great to be here.
Yeah, this is going to be a cool episode because this is a bike ride that has been on my, dare I say, bike it list for a while. So I'm really curious to hear all the details and if it's going to take me from 90% planning to do it up to 100%.
Yeah, there you go. We'll see.
Yeah. Well, before we get into talking about the bike tours and bike rides that you're a part of, will you tell the listeners where you currently live and what or if there's a cycling culture there?
Yeah, so our office is based in Durham, North Carolina, and I live in what's referred to as the Triangle in North Carolina. So that's Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. So that area does have a great biking culture. Greenways, as in a lot of places, are being developed, not quite fully developed, but there's quite a few universities, and so that tends to lend to a lot of good biking culture around around those. And then trying to get greenways throughout the Triangle is something that is being worked on pretty much daily. And in the larger state, North Carolina as a whole, different pockets have greenways, bike lanes, things like that are progressive, and other pockets are kind of, still looking to catch up to that. And so our rides, obviously they're road events, but, we try to use, as much of the existing infrastructure of bike lanes and greenways as we can, but obviously we can't go all the way across the state doing that. So, but the culture is strong here. I would say that, this area is a little more heavily traveled, and there's definitely pockets of lots of cars and traffic that we try to navigate around. So that makes it a little challenging for some things, but I do know and think that it's going in a great direction in this area for sure.
And the unique thing about North Carolina is it has like all kinds of terrain, meaning,
correct,
which is what we're going to get into today. But you have the coastline, you have mountains, it's not a flat state.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's, in the western part is the Appalachian Mountains. And so while, not comparable to the Rockies, it still is a, mountainous part of our state that you can get a lot of climbing in if you're into that. And then you'll come across the Piedmont, which is a lot of rolling hills, as, the mountains kind of flatten out towards the coast. And then you've got the coast, the coast, obviously, which is just flat riding, but you could have a headwind or a tailwind, depending on what day it is. So there's definitely all kinds of different challenges you can expose yourself to, by riding in our state.
And all of it sounds like a good challenge, like fun.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. It depends on what you're into, but there really is something for everyone in terms of challenging, of challenge. And if you're a flat rider and you love flat riding, there's plenty of that. But there's a lot of folks that just love climbing. And we've got the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is just a beautiful area to climb and ride a bike, and just get some of those awesome vistas of the Appalachian Mountains too.
Okay. And you are part of North Carolina Amateur Sports, so I have a feeling that you are either into cycling, you love cycling, or you promote cycling. Maybe all of those.
Yeah, probably all three. Our organization was originally founded back in 1983 to bring the Olympic Festival to North Carolina in 1987. So we kind of started from an Olympic roots type of organization. And so the Olympic Festival, when those used to be a thing, was held here in 87. Our group was kind of the organizing group and committee for it. Once the festival happened, half the proceeds went into an endowment fund that we award grants from every year. Another half went to start what's called a state games. And so one of our other events, or our main other event, is the state games in North Carolina, now known as the Body Armor State Games, that we put on every June. And that is like an Olympic type of event for amateur athletes. So we do sports from karate to pickleball to baseball to basketball, things like that. So we're doing that every June. And then in 99, we started Cycle North Carolina. We had cycling in our state games. We had a crit, a criterium. We'd had mountain bike. We've had other BMX, other bicycle events in state games. We saw an opportunity where there was a couple other cross-state tours going on at that time. Obviously, Rag Bride, Bike Florida, Ride the Rockies, Cycle Oregon. And so it was one of those things where there's nothing like this in North Carolina. And so maybe we could be the group that gets it started. And so that's kind of what happened in 99.
So, of course, I want to get into the Mountains to Coast ride because that's the one I'm most interested in. But what other cycling events, tell us a little bit more about those that you put on.
Yeah, so in 99, we started the Mountains to Coast ride. And this will be a little bit kind of a brief history quickly.
Sure, yeah.
And in 99, we did from Murphy to Manio, which was a 2-week ride. And we can talk about that a little bit later. But spawning from that ride, we have created 2 weekend events. One is the Coastal Ride, which moves around to a different coastal city every April. And that is a camp in one spot. We offer loop rides of varying distance from that one camping area. And so typically we've been focused on 3 towns: Edenton, Oriental, and Washington. Little Washington is what it's known as. This year, for the first time, we're going to be in Elizabeth City, which is another town we're adding into the mix. So, so that's just some good flat, riding on the coast, introduction to kind of the cycling season. It's spring, you can get outside, cycling's back, all of that. So that event has been very successful, and that came in 2004. And so we typically have around 1,300 cyclists for that one.
Okay.
And each day we go in different directions too. So you don't have the same route every day. It's different directions.
But you get to camp in the same spot.
You get to camp in the same
Nice.
spot, exactly.
Yeah,
you go different directions, and then we offer different lengths too. And we'll do a century ride on Saturday as well. So, so that one is just come and you set up tent one time. You hang out for the weekend, and you can go a bunch of different directions. And then in 2014, we offered a mountain ride. So we have a Mountains to Coast ride. We had a coastal ride. Let's do a mountain ride. So the mountain ride is also road biking, and then we rotate that around different mountain towns every August. And so, we're trying to get to the mountains in August, a little cooler than everywhere else. So, so that's been good. That's usually about 350 cyclists or so that come to that ride.
Okay.
And that's it's modeled just after the coastal ride, except coastal ride is 3 full days. Mountain ride is 2 full days of riding. And then, what it allows us to do is to get to some of the towns that we haven't been able to get to from Mountains to Coast that are further into the mountains. And so that's been a nice to work with new towns on that one.
Forgive me for not knowing this, but what is like the weather, like temperatures in North Carolina? Like, is it mostly, well, just tell me, what is the weather like in North Carolina?
Yeah, so typically we have, rather mild springs and falls where the highs will be in the 70s and 80s. Summers can get hot, 90s, maybe over 100 some summers too in June and July. And so in the spring for our coastal ride in April, usually, you're topping out at 80, 82, 83 degrees, but, and then the lows will be in the 50s and 60s at night in the spring.
Okay.
And then same thing for October for mountains to coast. It's very similar. One year we had a really hot mountains to coast and it got to 91 day. So that's as kind of hot as it got in October. And then in August in the mountains, you'll get into the mid 80s, but it won't typically hit 90 unless you just get unlucky.
Okay.
And so typically for our mountain ride, it's been 70s and 80s that as the highs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is there ever get to be snow in those mountains when you get up to the top?
It will in the winter.
Okay.
It does snow in the winter in the mountains fairly often. I mean, there's 3 or 4 ski resorts in North Carolina, nothing like the ones in Colorado, but there are 3 or 4 ski resorts that stay in business from pretty much November to March. They're either making snow or there is snow. So there is some snow there. The rest of the state rarely sees snow at this point. I mean, as the warming trend has continued, we did get a couple days of snow in the Triangle this year, but typically you don't get much snow.
Okay. I'm painting a picture in my head of what North Carolina is like.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's really, it's the only other thing I would add is the humidity can be a lot in the summer. It's a fairly humid state, when that heat kind of sets in and you can get a little oppressive humidity, which is why we're trying to be around the summer and not in the summer
sure.
with our stuff, except for the mountain ride, which the mountains aren't quite as humid as everywhere else. So
right.
That's nice.
Right. Well, that's a great segue into mountains to coast ride, which, seems pretty obvious that you're going from the mountains to the coast. Give us some more input on, or some more information about that ride. Is it actually the entire state of North Carolina?
Well, and I mentioned this earlier, but the first year, so Murphy to Manteo is what is kind of known as the, from end to end, if you're talking about North Carolina, Murphy's in the mountains, Manteo's on the coast.
Okay.
It's always that's the furthest 2 points you can go between. And so, the first ride in 99, we thought, hey, it'd be great if we did the Murphy to Manteo ride. Let's just do that. Ended up being 2 weeks, probably bit off a little bit more than we could chew on that one. But, 350, 400 riders, I think, did all 2 weeks that year.
Wow. And that's a long time for, people who are still working and want to take off vacation or even if you're not working, that's just a long time to be on the bike.
It was a long time and it was a long ride, but glad we did it. And that was kind of the segue into chopping it down to a week.
Yeah.
And so depending on what part of the state you end in, depends on how far into the mountains you can start in, but it won't get the entire state. We will start in a mountain town and we'll end in a coastal town. But sometimes depending on the route, which we do change every year, not unlike those other tours, we can start in different parts of the mountains, but we won't cover all the mountains or all of the coast. It's literally kind of like a line from the mountains to the coast. Just depends on the route each year will change.
Okay. And have you set dates for 2025?
Yes, so dates are set for 25. Registration's open. It's October 5th to the 11th.
Perfect.
25. And to note, it is obviously a point-to-point ride, mountains to coast. So you're picking up and setting up camp in a different spot every day.
And you said it's a multi-day ride, obviously, because we just talked about the 2 weeks to 1 week. Will you tell us, I know what mountains are like and I know what the coast is like, but what's the terrain for this ride?
Yeah, typically, the first few days you're looking at somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 feet of climb. We're averaging somewhere between 60 and 65 miles a day. I'm just looking at the terrain for this year's ride. You may get a break day on day two. Day 2 here is a little under 3,000. Sometimes we go in the Piedmont. We hit what's called the Uwharrie Mountains, which are a really low mountain range, but then it picks back up into the 3,000 to 4,000 foot range in terms of climb. Once you get to day 4, day 5, it really starts to flatten out. And then you're going down to 1,700 feet, 900 feet. Of course, when you get to the coast, you're barely getting any climb at all. First few days are a little challenging. Last few days, easier unless you get that headwind, of course.
Right.
So you can, you can get kind of what you want depending on, if you're a climber, you get that the first few days. If you love the flat ride, you get that the last few days.
Well, and by the end of the week, your legs are completely in
Yeah.
shape, and then you can just breeze on in, have some fun, and
Right, of
enjoy all
course,
the
yeah.
other stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
About how many riders participate in this event?
So this event, we have somewhere between 850 and 1,000 riders.
Oh,
Usually.
wow. So that's a big group.
Yeah, and usually it's 42 different states represented or so, 42, 43. So really comes from all over, and typically we'll have 3 or 4 countries also, which is, it is a big group. Average age is around 60 usually. So, we have folks that obviously just do it every year because they love it. And then we have folks that, want to come and do our ride and then go do another ride and those type of things. So, so it's kind of a good mix.
And is it, you said it's point to point. So obviously you've got to set up camp every day. But is it a camping event or is it a hotel event, or how does that work?
Good question. I mean, it's both. So you kind of pick what you want to do. So we do, obviously have the campsite is where the start line is every day. And we run shuttles to hotels as well. So if you stay in our hotels, we run shuttles from the campsite to the hotels and back in the morning. And so you can book hotels every day. You can do a hotel one night, camp another night. You can kind of pick how you want to do it. And then if you want to bring an RV, we support that as well. So you can bring an RV and ride, as long as you have someone to drive it for you, then you can do that.
Right.
So that's another option.
And then, okay, so this is, something that happens a lot with RAGBRAI, where especially people who have never done the event, you have to park your car at the beginning or at the end and then somehow get back to it. So is that a service that you offer, or how do most people deal with that challenge?
Yeah, so we do offer that. So we offer parking at the beginning, and then we offer parking in the middle. And the middle is in Raleigh-Durham. So folks can fly into Raleigh-Durham, which is an easily accessible airport. So they can get to a shuttle that way. So they can get to the shuttle that goes to the start or to the end, or people can park their cars there and ride the shuttle up, ride the shuttle back to Raleigh-Durham. Or you can leave your car at the start if you just want to drive to the start, and then at the end we'll shuttle you back to the start.
Okay.
As well.
Okay. So that part, no brainer. It's available if you want it.
It's available. It's easy. We handle the bike transport as well with the shuttles. So show up with your bike, we'll pack it on our truck and take it up there for you. So pretty seamless with that. An easy add-on. So if you don't have anyone to drive you the whole time, you can do it that way. The other thing I should mention is we do offer like shorter versions as well. You could do a 3-day Western option or a 3-day Eastern option, and we provide shuttling for that as well.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So the logistics seem pretty, cut and dry. All of it's available that if you want it. Tell us about it, like a typical day, or more importantly, like unique experiences. Like, what are riders going to see on this ride?
Yeah, I mean, so a typical day, obviously you're leaving camp, routes open at 7:30. You're heading out, taking your time. We offer 3 or 4 rest stops a day. The rest stops are typically at interesting spots. We try to do a great job of telling the local story as we're going through the towns. And some of these small towns, this is their biggest day of the year, having us come through. And so they a lot of them will roll out the red carpet. They'll do kind of like a street fair, or we'll be at a historic site where they'll have people in period garb telling their story. And so it's you really get some of everything. We do wineries. Last year we stopped at one of those arcade bars, so people could just kind of play pinball and stuff. So really kind of get, a different type of unique experiences depending on where we're going. But we do a really good job of telling that local story. And that's, this event is a tourism-based event. We're in partnership with Visit NC. So the idea is, hey, let's really promote, the scenic beauty of North Carolina, but also the historic attractions, the visitor attractions, and give people a taste of North Carolina so they'll want to come back.
Oh, yeah.
And so one other thing that we've done, which is probably 6 or 7 years now, in partnership with Visit NC, we offer excursions every day. So if you're injured or you're not feeling up to riding one day, we have a tour bus that goes to pre-planned itinerary excursions each day. So that could be other sites that you can actually immerse yourself even further in, because you'll spend an hour or two there. And so we've offered some folks, if you have a significant other or a friend that doesn't ride but wants to come with you and camp with you or stay in the hotels with you, they can just do the excursions all week if they want.
Sure. Or if you want to just take a day off, right?
Yeah, if you just want to take a day off, we'll transport your bike and you can do the excursions. Or if you feel like one day is 4,500 feet and you're like, that's too much for me, I'm going to do the excursion. So you can take that off, So I mean, that's an option, which is definitely unique. And we work in conjunction with Visit NC to put those on, to offer something, that's fun. And the itinerary is different every year and is a good itinerary, something interesting to go see.
Do you have any examples of past years of like just cool things that you guys have done as far as excursions or places to see?
Yeah. So last year we actually did a rest stop at the Richard Petty Museum.
Oh.
I'm sure you probably don't have a ton of NASCAR fans, but Richard Petty is, obviously an icon. And so we went there last year with both the excursions and and it was a rest stop. So we'll do stuff like that. I know that, we've done wineries and breweries in the past as well. Trying to think. A lot of these towns will, the Angier Train Depot last year comes to mind. They kind of just closed down the whole town and just threw like a festival as they came through.
Nice, yeah.
And so that's a lot of fun. And so a lot of them do that. But yeah, I mean, other excursion places, we did an excursion to the Durham Bulls Stadium one year, and actually we had a rest stop there as well. So that, that's just something different and unique also, and then trying to involve, we have what's called the American Tobacco Trail. We've involved that in some of our rides, which is a greenway through the Triangle. And so that's another good one.
I love that you're, bringing the culture of North Carolina to the riders. There's when you think of a multi-day tour, like I'm thinking of Colorado's ride. I did that last year, and how the main focus is to get up and ride your bike, and the scenery is beautiful. But then the organizers did such a good job of you get done riding, and then now here's something cool in the area that you can experience if you choose to. So I feel like you're doing almost the same thing for Cycle North Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, we really are. I mean, again, it's a touring event, not a race. So, we really encourage you to get out and see some of these other sites, which, and take your time. The route opens at 7:30, it closes at 4:30. So take your time, explore. Some of the other sites that we've gone, one of the other ones that just came to mind was the Karen Beasley Sea Turtle Rescue Center. We've done a rest stop there a few times, which is a ton of fun. We do museums like the North Carolina Museum of Art. We've done Grandfather Mountain, which is one of I think it is the tallest peak in North Carolina. And they have one of those kind of swinging bridges where you can walk out and, feel like your life is in the hands of the bridge. And then the North Carolina Zoo is one of the biggest zoos. I think it is the biggest zoo in terms of acreage in the country. And so we've gone there with excursions. We've done rest stops there. One of our overnight towns in 2025 is Asheboro, which is the home of the zoo. So that's a fun one that we've done in the past as well. And frankly, this year we're ending at Fort Fisher, which is a historic site. So that's going to be the end right on the beach there, which was an old fort from the Civil War era. So you kind of get a lot of different opportunities, from NASCAR to, historic sites to baseball stadiums to, we're going to be staying in a baseball stadium this year. An overnight will be at the Kannapolis Cannonballer Stadium. And so that is, you get to stay, camp on the outfield there, have all the amenities of the stadium and all that. So
there won't be, a game, right? Well, my 10 is pitched in the outfield.
Yeah, and we also got to make sure those sprinklers are turned off. You know how they
Oh,
love to water. You know how they love to water the grass.
yeah, that's
Um,
for sure.
but as I think, if you think about North Carolina, a lot of the history is based. It's a very historic baseball state. Durham Bulls. One of the most iconic minor league franchises. There's a lot of NASCAR. We involve a lot of that in it. In kind of our stuff as well. And then also you get kind of the history, you get the breweries, you get the wineries, you get all those different things involved
Oh,
also.
yeah. Yeah, I love it. And you said it was an average of around, average of like 60 miles a day, right?
Yeah, 60 to 65, yeah, depending on the year. Usually it settles somewhere between 425, 450 miles that we ride each year. We do offer a century day, typically on day 6 or so, one of the flatter days.
Mm-hmm.
So if you wanted to do a century, to add that on, you can do that also.
So I'm guessing a typical day, you get done with your ride, and like you said, it's not a race. So you take your time, explore whatever happened or whatever was available on that route. So you get into camp, set up your camp, and then typically do you offer like food, beverage, entertainment, or is it at least within walking distance?
Yeah, so we work with those towns, and we tell them, the real entertainment window at the campsite is about 1 to 5 p.m. So folks
Mm-hmm.
are arriving, we'll have some sort of music playing, food trucks, beverages, kind of at the campsite from 1 to 5. And then we encourage them to do something downtown,
Yeah.
for dinner. So a lot of times they'll do a band in a square, downtown for dinner, or they'll have different spots you can hit. Last year, Statesville's known for the Carolina Balloon Fest, and so they had all these hot air balloons that they blew up in downtown and did
Ah.
what's called they did the tethered rides, but then they also did like a twilight glow. So if you blow them up at twilight, they light up and all
Mm.
that stuff. So that was fun. But yeah, typically, and we run shuttles into town if you can't walk there. We would love to be able to walk to all of them, but obviously it's not feasible depending
Right,
on trying to
right.
get 300 or 400 tents out there. So a lot of times it's walkable, but other times we have these shuttles running that get you there, and we have a couple shuttles that go with us all week, and then we ask the town to kind of supplement
Mm-hmm.
with their own shuttles as well to make it work. And so the shuttles will go to town, to the hotels, back to the campsite, and so you can get food that way. Or if you want to join our meal plan, we offer a meal plan as well.
Oh, cool. Okay.
The meal plan does include breakfast and dinner as an add-on. And so you can purchase that and have breakfast every morning at the campsite or dinner every evening at the campsite. We encourage you to go into town as opposed to purchasing the meal plan, but we realize the convenience of it is nice.
Yeah, yeah.
So typically of the 800-900 folks that we have, usually about 200 or so will do that meal plan.
Okay. And it's nice to be able to explore the town. I can see both of those being a great benefit. I guess you could get the meal plan, eat, and then head into town and just explore.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
You can absolutely do that. And if you're just worried about food, you can just get the meal plan and then decide, hey, I don't want to eat it tonight. I want to go into town.
Right, right,
So you
right.
can make your choice if you want to.
And I assume on the route, it's a typical bike tour in that you have aid support, SAG support, you have medical if needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we have all of that. We have SAGs that are on the route, throughout the day. We have mechanics at every rest stop. So if something breaks down, we'll SAG you up to that rest stop. You can get it fixed.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, we have mechanical support at camp overnight as well. So if you get in and need your bike tuned up or whatever, our mechanics can handle all of that also. So yeah, we do have all of that covered. And then the rest stops are fully stocked. One of the unique things that we do is at the lunch stop every day, we offer peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. So that's kind of like a thing that some of the cyclists have grown to know our ride for, is just the peanut butter and jelly sandwiches that we offer at the rest stops each day. And then, of course, you have your typical fruit, snacks, sodas, water, body armor, drinks, things like that.
There's something about eating peanut butter and jelly on a bicycle. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And obviously it's true because you have your riders that are looking forward to it. But when you're like kind of sweaty and gross I don't know what it is about it, but yeah, it's one of my favorite things when I'm biking.
Yeah, and Mount Olive Pickles is from Mount Olive, North Carolina.
Mm.
And so we have pickles at all of our rest stops as well. And, those are good for cramping, things like that. So
Yeah,
those have
yeah.
actually become a popular item for us. So that's another kind of unique thing that we have there.
Okay, so I'm sure I'm not the only one that's listening to this podcast episode that is now super excited to learn more about, Mountains to Coast bike tour, bike ride. So where's the website? Where can you go to find out more information?
So ncsports.org, so like northcarolinasports.org is where you can go to find more info. That has info about all three of our events up there. And we do currently have registration open for all three.
Mm-hmm.
Coastal Ride is April 25th to 27th, so that one's coming up this month.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mountain Ride's August 1st to 3rd, and then Mountains to Coast is October 5th to the 11th. So you can register for one or all three at ncsports.org.
Love it. And before we go, any sponsors, partners, anything else you want to plug about North Carolina and cycling?
Well, I mean, we obviously, I've said them multiple times, but Visit NC and Retire NC are some of our biggest partners for the event. And so we do want to thank them for all of their support. Body Armor Sports Drink is one of our sponsors as well. And Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. So those are kind of the three that we'd like to plug and get out there. I also, Lake Gaston Outfitters is our bike mechanic support. And so we're definitely in debt to them and love having them come with us for the ride as well.
All right. Well, I think I've talked about it on the podcast before, but I'm on a quest to ride a bicycle in every state in the U.S., and North Carolina is still on my list. So I am looking forward to heading your way in October to check out this Mountains to Coast ride. So anybody else out there who's listening and is like, I want to do that too. You said ncsports.org is the website. And thank you so much for coming on, Chip.
Thanks, Murph. Appreciate it. And we look forward to having you out here in October. It's going to be a lot of fun.
All right. Thank you. Well, listeners, that's it for this week. Email me at murphologypodcast@gmail.com if you have a topic or the name of a cyclist you find interesting. Support my podcast at patreon.com/murphology and visit both my Facebook and Instagram pages for daily entertainment. I have more great episodes in the pipeline, so I hope you continue to be a Murphology podcast listener.